Hey everyone, welcome to Class 6 of Audio MIDI I Spring 2022 here at the Copeland School of Music, Queens College, City University of New York. So how's everyone doing today?
Good, you?
Good.
Real good, thanks.
Doing good.
Ooh, lots of goods. Yeah, the weather's a little warmer today. Yesterday, I'm 70 miles north of the city, and we had 3 inches of snow. It was really cold yesterday, but it's been about 50 or 51 today, so very sunny. It's really a nice day, and a lot of the snow has melted already. Although Saturday we're going to have a big event, so winter is just giving us its last little. And even though I missed 80% of it, it's a drag. One thing, I'm happy that almost everybody has handed in almost every assignment, which is really great. I really appreciate that because it saves a lot of headaches later on down the road when people are trying to catch up, and I'm not too happy about having to go over late assignments towards the end of the semester. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And people are, you're getting it. You're doing pretty well. So hopefully you'll have your assignments in today. I think that there were a couple of people who emailed me that they might be a little late, which is fine. If you are going to be late, but sometime over the weekend, just send me an email to let me know that it's up, because I'm going to try to get the feedback videos done by Saturday for this. So now, those of you that took Recording Studio Fundamentals last semester, we have been going over stuff that you kind of went over, but we're going to start now today, hopefully going over things that you haven't seen with MIDI and getting into a little bit more detail with that at MIDI Editing. And I prepared a session that we can look at, and hopefully you can do some of that in your upcoming work. There'll be an assignment that'll be due 2 weeks from today, but I want to see a draft of it next week, and I'll talk about it as the class goes on. So today's class is going to be broken up into 2 topics, possibly 3, depending upon how you look at it and how much time I've got after I get through the 2 that I want to get through. I've got a session prepared with some short passages, and we're going to be doing some MIDI functionality to those passages and changing them and altering them, and we're going to be exploring some of that using the event operations window. And then we're going to be talking about programming your own sounds a little bit, and we'll be doing a little bit of basics on the basics of synthesis. This class is not meant to deal with synthesis, but if you're doing audio and MIDI, you should know the fundamentals of envelopes, filters, stacking sounds together to create aggregate sounds, things like that, which we can do easily inside of Pro Tools, inside of Expand 2. And I should probably spend a minute or 2 going over some of the other instruments that come with Pro Tools. So we've got a lot of stuff to cover today, so no sparsity of topics. All right, so with that, let's switch view. And we're going to talk about quantizing and changing note lengths. So this is a drum, just a short little, easy, very simple drum groove here in Pro Tools. I'm using just the pop kit from Expand 2. And let me just play this for you. Oh, you'll notice that I've got a new toy which shows you the keystrokes, which will be helpful for you to see that. That's a new piece of software that I added. And I also changed the size of my mouse, and when I click, you'll see a little circle around the cursor. So all right, so you get that, right? It's a clave rhythm, just a boom, da-doom, clave rhythm in the cross stick, boom, da-doom in the kick drum, and a foot hi-hat on 2 and 4. Now, let me move this here and zoom this in. Now, this is a little poorly implemented in Pro Tools. All right, so do you see the size here of the MIDI notes? Now, this little guy here No, it's not doing it. Oh, give me a second here. Maybe I need to be on a different tool. Hold on. This is supposed to be able to, what you're supposed to do is be able to change the size of the notes. And it's supposed to be that if I'm hovering over that, I'm supposed to get, yeah, so you can see how the size of the notes are changing. And then, so let me zoom in and show you that the tooltips aren't showing. Let me make sure that my preferences didn't get changed. Yeah, they're supposed to be there. Okay. So I think that it didn't work because I didn't have the grabber tool selected. So let me zoom in. So right up in this upper right-hand corner here, you'll see the keyboard focus, the A to Z. Below that is a little square with two little MIDI notes in it, right? There we go. So if I hover over the bottom, it says MIDI zoom out, right? So if I click the bottom of that box, you see the notes gets the horizontally smaller or vertically smaller. And then if I scroll to the top and click, they get bigger. All right, that's poorly implemented, right? There, it's just really, but it does work. Yeah. Okay, so that's one thing. If you want to make these bigger, right? And you can get those bigger. Another thing to do is that if you use the magnifying glass over here, the zoom tool, and you lasso an area, that fills up the screen, right? So let me actually show what I'm doing here. Give me 1 second. Okay, great. Sorry about that. So I've got my, whoops. So let me zoom out. So if I want to just look at this little area here, I select, come on, technical issues. Sorry, guys and ladies. Okay, great. So, man, my mouse is going crazy. All right, so if I click and drag to the right, as you can see I'm doing, right, I'm just lassoing that area and it shows that area fills up the screen. Alternatively, what you can do is you can go to the selector tool and then just click and select an area and then use the keyboard command Control, Option, and the letter F like fit, and that all fits in there. So that's just, you know, it's easier to see when you can get really close to the information like that and make it fill up the screen. So that's Control, Option, F as in fit. And then if you want to see the entire track in there, it's Control, Option, A as in all. Control, Option, A. Whoops. Yeah, I got to get used to that new toy I've got, that new piece of software. All right. Now, let me record enable this track. With drums, for the most part, if I play a note, let's say I'll play this cymbal here, right? If I hold down the key, that's how long it lasts. If I hit the key quickly, it lasts the same length. That is different than, let's say, a piano. If I play a piano note, it's short, it's sustained. So one thing that I'm looking at here is all these different durations, right? I like to see it so that, let me get in here. So that all the notes are the same duration when I'm programming drums. I don't think that that's standard for anybody else but me, and it just looks cleaner and neater to me, and I like things to look clean and neat. So I'm going to select everything with Command-Shift-A. Just Command-A, sorry. Right? And then what I want to do is open up the Event Operations window. Now, there's two spots where you can get that. Up here in this menu, you can scroll down to Event Operations and Event Operations window. What I like to do, though, is just have a couple of commands memorized. So, for example, the Quantize window is Option and 0. So once you've opened up the Quantize window, right here, you see this rectangle with a downward-facing triangle. You can select that, And this gives you all the functions for the event operations window, and you can change duration. Now, each one of these notes is a MIDI event, and every DAW has what's called an event list, a MIDI event list. And when I first was sequencing, I used to work in the event editor, you know, like, I don't know, like when I first was sequencing with a computer, which is now over 30 years. And you could see that every note here has an event in this list, right? So this tells you the starting spot. This tells you the pitch. This tells you the velocity. This tells you the release velocity, and this tells you the length, right? And you can select any track up here. So that's the MIDI event list. I don't typically use that. It is useful, but there's so many other things that are more useful. So I just sort of like to stick with what's useful. All right. So what I want to do is with change duration, let's put this in a place where it's not in the way of the notes. I have a bunch of options here, and we're going to go over several of these on some of the other examples, but I want to set everyone to a particular note duration, right? So I want it to be short. So if I set it to 240, remember that's a 16th note, right? I type 240 in, I hit the enter key once, and then you see that as long as everything's selected, the apply button is blue. You can either click on the apply button and it will do the function, or you could just simply hit the enter key again. And now you see that everything looks nice and clean, like it's on a drum machine, an old school drum machine with grids and everything, or with boom. And then it doesn't change the way that this sounds. Now, let me zoom out again. When you have this MIDI editor open, I've gone over this, but I want to go over it again. This little circle here on the far right with the downward facing triangle, it gives you scrolling options. It doesn't come preset with anything, which is pretty poor planning. So I have to typically at the beginning of every session set it to page. And I like page scrolling as opposed to continuous scrolling. So what page does is, if I zoom in and play it, you'll see that when I get to the end here, it sort of flips the page. So, right, and it's like reading a book. What continuous scrolling does is it makes me seasick. Right? There's too much happening there. I get vertigo looking at that, personally speaking. But so page. So I've changed the duration of all my notes so that I can see everything clearly. And we can see that it's not really played tightly. Right? If I look to my grid, things are all over the place. So I'm going to want to quantize this, right? And the first thing I want to do is I want to look to see what the smallest note value is. Whoops. And I'm looking here, and I've got this set for 8th notes, but it looks like I've got 16th notes. So if I change this to 16th notes, I can now see a little bit better where everything is. So I taught you guys how to manually edit, which the reason for doing that is so that you get mouse technique. You know, you learn how to use the mouse, and you can, and you can do individual edits so that if you've got a really good performance, but just a couple of notes are off, you can fix those, and you've learned how to do all the basic functionality of using the mouse. And so that's one reason why I do individual editing at the beginning of the class. So what I can do is I can select all of these, right, with Command A. And I'll set my quantize grid to 16th notes. I want to quantize the note on and preserve the note duration. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then if I just apply by hitting this, we now have a perfect soulless drum part. So I can undo that with Command Z. Now, what I typically like to do is there's just a few notes here and there are off, right? So I can set my 16th note, and over here you've got some options, right? So I'm only going to talk about strength and swing. So if we do strength, what this will do is if something is within 10% of the grid, it won't move it. It'll move everything else 90% closer to the grid. So if I hit enter, so that's no longer highlighted, and then hit apply, which you'll see that it looks like it's perfect, but if I zoom in, you can see that there's some notes that are still before and after the grid. So this just takes my performance and tightens it up a little bit. So that's feeling better than the previous one. Now, let me undo that again. Now, what if I want to have one thing that a drummer can do that's really cool is they can sort of have different feels for each limb, right? Their hands can be doing one feel, and the cymbals can be doing, or hats can be doing another feel, and their feet can be doing a different feel. So you can kind of get that here on this, and I'll show you that, how to do that. It's pretty easy, actually. All right, let me zoom out. Now, if I use the grabber tool, I can simply lasso all the notes, right? Like that, and it would select all of them. But also, if I click here, I notice that it's this G sharp. And if I click on this G sharp, every foot hi-hat will be selected. So let's say I want to make my foot hi-hat let's say I don't want that to be too tight. So let's say I make that like 85%, right? So I've quantized that one way, and the foot, let's say that I want to make that a little tighter. So let's say I make that 95%, and I do that. And then the cross stick, let's say I make that between and make that 90%, hit enter and apply. Now I've quantized each one of these notes to a different value. Right? So that's pretty cool. So let me undo the cross stick. So let's leave the strength there and let's play around with swing, right? So swing comes defaulted at 100%. So let's see what happens if I do 100% swing and with complete strength. It gives you a different feel. I'm not sure I like it because it clashes with the kick drum, right? But let's say we make it 50%. And what I can do is, let's do this. Let me mute the kick drum. So this is a cool thing in Pro Tools, and I think you can do this in other DAWs, is if I hover here and I select all those kick drums, right? And I do Command M, you'll see that they're all grayed out. That means that just those individual notes are muted. Right, so let's now select our cross stick and apply 50% swing. Okay, so that's pretty cool, except that one of these notes doesn't sound good. This one right here. So let's remember that. let's move our swing up to 60% and then apply. So what's happening is that as I zoom in, you can see that the 16th notes are being moved later from the grid. So if I undo that, this is, you know, let's make this perfect, okay? All right, so you could see all my notes are right on the grid. But this note here is a 16th note, right? So if I open up swing and I swing 16th notes, this note and this note move a little bit. Oh, you can't see that. Let me remove myself. Sorry. This note and this note get moved a little bit later. Let me undo that. Let's make this 80% swing, right? See, they get moved a little bit further away. So now let's bring our kick drum in. Command M will unmute those notes. And let's play the kick drum. So I've got a much different feel on that now, right? Now, what happens if I look at the kick drum and the kick drum is just doing eighth notes, right? So let me select the kick drum and let's change our quantized grid to eighth notes and let's swing the kick drum a little bit. Now you'll see that it's really off here. That doesn't work, right? So what happens if we just make it like about 55%? That doesn't work either. But what we can do is we can see which eighth notes in the cross stick are off with the kick drum. So we can hold down the shift key, which is what I'm doing now, and I can click on these notes that are not lined up with the kick drum. Okay, and let's make these a little bit different swing, and let's make these 58. Okay, so they're closer to the kick drum, but they're not exactly with the kick drum. You could see it's just a fraction of a second later on these highlighted notes. You see that? That's just a fraction of a second later. So that's a weird kind of odd groove, and it might be something that you like, but I'm just showing you different possibilities. So let me undo all that. Now, another thing that's kind of cool is what if we took, and we're going to talk about drum programming in earnest in one class, but let's say we take this hi-hat here, right? And there's a song by Wilson Pickett called 634-5789. It's a telephone number. And Wilson Pickett recorded a lot with the musicians in Memphis, the Stax musicians. And the drummer in the Stax rhythm section was a guy named Al Jackson. And what they started working on was how they can change the groove to give it more of a feel. And one thing that he came up with was taking the backbeat, which is beat 2 and 4, and delaying the backbeat so that it comes in a little fraction of a second later from the rest of the groove. And when we go over drum programming, I'm going to play that track. I don't want to play it today, but we can do the same thing here because the only thing that's playing on the backbeat here is the hi-hat. So let me close this. we can go to slip mode, and we can just click on this and drag this back a little bit like that. Right, so it's starting to have a little bit cooler feel. So let me do this a little bit more. Now, hold on one second here. Okay, so if we go here, we can add the expanded grid and nudge display. And it doesn't mean like you're a nudge, like an Italian would call somebody who's obnoxious. But we have this nudge here. And we can nudge things forward or backwards. Right now it's set for a quarter note. So basically I'm hitting the plus key. I'm hitting this plus key and it's making it later. And if I hit the minus key, it moves it earlier. So that's not what we want for this particular thing. So let's go to ticks. Well, we don't have ticks. So let's go to minutes and seconds, and we'll make it so that it's 10 milliseconds. So, right, so that's 1/100th of a second. And I hit it once, and it moved it back a little. See how it's moving it just a little bit? So now I'm somewhere between being right on the beat and being on the 60, like a 64th note. Now, that's starting to have a lot better feel to me. But one next thing I want to do is I want to work on the kick drum. So I'm going to click here and drag all the way up. And notice how the cross stick and the hi-hat are selected. I'm going to mute those. That's going to be Command M. And now I can just hear the kick drum. So bum, 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 bum. That should be my phrasing, right? Bum, bum, bum. And if I make this faster, so that's at 82, that's at 120. Let's change that to measure 1. Let's make that a 144. Right, so now we've got sort of a bossa samba kind of a groove. Boom, 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 right? Turn up the velocity there. See, that's too soft. Too soft. So I'm mixing the drums right now, right? Didn't hear that at all. Too loud. Too soft. Okay, so now let's zoom out a little bit. And let's unmute. So I'm clicking and dragging up. Right? Let me do that again with the view. So I'm clicking and dragging up with the mouse. So you see that those are all highlighted. And then Command and M like Mary. And now those are all audible. So let's play this. Okay, that's fast. So let's make it slower again. Let's make it back down to 120. So now I'm listening to that and the cross stick is too loud. So I'm going to select the cross stick just like that. And then I'm going to hold down on the Command key. I've got the grabber selected. Oops, there was a weird cross stick there, but you get the idea, right? I've got a much different feel now than I had at the beginning, right? And it's just through some creative thinking and quantizing and moving notes around using the nudge tool. Yeah. Now, let me just show you another thing that you can do. Now I'm going to push. Oh, see, that transposes. We've gone over that, right? With the up and then the down. And if we do shift and up, it goes up an octave, right? We've gone over that before. Option shift doubles the note an octave higher. So that's pretty good if you're doing strings and you want them in octaves, right? You can just do option shift and click on the note and it transposes it up an octave and it doubles it basically. But if we do the right arrow, you see how it's just scrolling through all the notes? Let me actually change that. That's starting to really bother me. Okay, great. That's better. And let me get that down here. Okay, so, right, so even if you have nothing there and you want to select the first note, you push that right arrow and it just goes in temporal sequence. So it goes to the next note in the on the timeline, and then the back key goes backwards. So that's another way to navigate through there. Now, that's a little bit sloppy, you know, but that's okay. This note can be a little louder here. Now, we can also change the cross stick where it's spaced also. So if we did like just maybe one, right, we're getting an odd feel, which is kind of interesting. So you just do that to taste, all right? Okay, so now let's take a look at the next bit. Still with drums. So I'm going to select all, right? And I want to, first thing I'm going to do is change the duration. So let me show you another way to change duration. So option 0 brings up our quantize, right? So this is a triplet feel. Let me play a little bit of it. Very sloppily played, but I did that so that we can fix it. So we have, I'm going to select all. So we have a 16th note triplet. 16th note triplet. So 3 16th notes in the time of 2. I'm going to turn the swing off. We can also quantize the note off. So if I click here, now this will not make every note the same value, but it will just quantize the duration to the nearest 16th note tuplet. You see that? And then so not perfect yet, right? So let's undo that. All right. Let's now do it the other way. Command, select all, and let's go to note duration. And we're going to make it smaller than a 16th note. Well, actually, there are no 2 16th notes right next to each other, so I can. Yeah, so let's do this. I'm going to make it a smaller amount, like let's say 180. There we go. And that looks pretty good. We can see every note there. All right, so let's fix this using the individual quantizing that we did before. So let's just, we'll solo in on the kick drum first. So let me mute all these other drums, right? Option, Command M like Mary. And now let's select the kick drums. right? So let's try our 16th note tuplet, and let's not make it perfect. Let's make it like 92%. Okay, so I could see that this note here, right, is not lining up in the space I want to put it in. I played it so badly that it's quantizing it to the wrong space. It's quantizing it to the last triplet of beat 1. So let me just slide this over using the, right, and I fixed that one note. And that's one reason why I wanted to show you how to do things individually. So now, and this here, let's see. Right, so this here is off also. So I'm just going to move this. It was way early, so I'm going to move it so that's closer to where it should be and then re-quantize just that one note. $50 Quatlus if anybody can name the song that this is from.
Rosanna?
Correct. Did you hear how that one was off over here? Just move this over and then reapply. Okay, so that kick drum sounds pretty good. We may come back and do a little bit more work with that, but let's mute that for now. And that would be Command M like Mary. And let's do our snare drum, which is these two notes here. And we will unmute those. First, actually, before we mute the kick drum, let's play the snare drum and the kick drum together. So I'll unmute the kick drum. So we're not listening to the hi-hat right now. Right, you can hear how some spots are really bad with the kick drum. So let's fix this one here, just because there's two different notes that have the snare drum. So let's make this one 88, right? So it's a little looser, right? Okay. Let's see. So there's something wrong there. Let's take a look at this pattern. Right. So that's right on the beat. That should be right on beat 2. So I'm just going to manually move it over. There we go. And now we've got these ghost notes here. Let's make those a little bit tighter. So we'll make those maybe 95%, right? Let's see. That doesn't sound right. There's two of these here. This one shouldn't be here, so I'm going to lose that one. Right? So I made a mistake playing it in. Let me re-quantize that. So that sounds weird, right? Because the triplet works in with the hi-hat. So let's now unmute our hi-hat. So Command M like Mary. And let's mute all these drums here. So... And now let's take a listen to our hi-hat. So our hi-hat is playing the first and third triplet of every eighth note. And then this ghost note is playing the, right. That needs to be unmuted. That's why it's a little weird. And let's quantize that. Okay, and this is playing the second triplet of occasional beats, and then over here it's more regular. So let's take a listen to this. And let's make this like maybe 90%, and let's actually swing this a little bit. So let's maybe swing it like 52%. So 50% is pretty flat. So I'm just going to swing it just a little bit. No, that doesn't work at all, right? So I'm going to undo that, and I'm just going to apply the quantizing. Okay, so now let me unmute these other notes. So I'll select those, Command M, and let's play this. Okay, so this note here, you could see that that note there sounds a little off, and I'm not sure why. I see, because it's right on the 16th note. It's not on the 16th note triplet. So let's move this back so I could hear that that was really poorly executed. Did you hear how this was too soft, right? So let's bring that up. Still too soft. Whoops, sorry, excuse me. Let's get right where the ghost notes start. Oh, what was that? Right? You see that? How that's not good? So I'll just hit my plus key and get that right where it should be. Oh, nope, that's not right. So this kick drum needs to come in a little bit earlier. Right, so you could see that's so much better. There's one more thing I want to do. And what I want to do is I want to phrase the kick drum. So that means that these pickup notes are too loud. So I'm holding the shift key down and just selecting all of those little pickup notes. That's the downbeat, right? Just like with the last one. It shouldn't be bop bop, it should be boot-up. Right? A little softer. So I've selected all those. Holding the command key, I can hover over that. My grabber tool turns to a sideways trimmer and just bring that down. A little bit more. I think even more. Okay, not as good as Jeff Porcaro, but better than the first thing and not bad, right? Useful. So those of you that took Recording Studio Fundamentals last semester, your instructor, Ken, is actually out on tour with Toto right now doing front of house. They just played up in Albany Tuesday night, and I was almost going to drive over there, but I was just so exhausted. And they're playing with Journey, and I don't really want to see Journey. So I didn't end up going, but yeah. Okay, so that's more detailed work with quantizing using the quantize window, right? It's a lot of like detailed stuff there. And that's exactly how I work when I'm working on my drum parts. You know, I don't just, I do each individual instrument separately because I want to hear the interaction and how they all fit together. You know, I don't like doing, you know, I don't like just selecting everything with drums and quantizing that. I think it's really, and it's not that difficult to do. It takes a little bit of time, but using this trick here where you can select an instrument or a couple of instruments, like all my snares, and then mute, you know, or muting the other ones and then working on the particular instrument and getting that to sound right, and then hearing how they fit together. So in other words, if I were to, let's say I'm going to mute the hi-hats. Now, that sounds great, but let's unmute the hi-hats. There's another thing that we can do along the same lines as the delayed backbeat. So let's just pick beat 2. So I'm going to click on beat 2 and hold the shift key down and just go through here and select all beat 2s. Right? So now if I use that little trick of delaying that a little bit. Let's hear what that sounds like. So you see that I've moved that back so that just beat 2 is late and then beat 4 is right on it. Okay, it's a little too much. So let's just go back a little bit. I undid one level. See, it's very subtle, but you can hear a difference. So let's mute the hi-hats and let's listen to just the kick drum and the snare drum. So when you just move beat 2 a little bit later, right, the distance between the downbeat and beat 2 becomes longer. And then the distance between beat 2 and beat 4 on the hi-hat becomes, you know, shorter than it normally would be. So that affects the feel. And these are just very subtle things. But if you listen to great drummers, they can control that. Oops. Okay, so right here, I'm going to select all those. So I just, you know, clicked and dragged all the way across. Right? And whoops, whoa, excuse me. Sorry about that. Man, my mouse is all over the place today. And then I'm going to bring down the velocity of all those even more. Now, the other thing you'll notice is that I played it in, and it sounded good. I'm not going to really touch it. That my, you know, all of the hi-hat notes that are on the beat they're pretty dark, which means the velocity is up, and the pickup ones are lighter, right? So here I could bring, if I wanted to really be detailed, and that gives it da 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 instead of da 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 da. It's da 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 da. Right, and you get that sort of phrasing of the instrument, and that's like what good drummers do. They phrase. If anybody in here is a drummer, and you can, you know, confirm that. Okay, so let's move on to our next one. All right, so here we have a violin part, right? It's 3 violins. I mean 3-part writing for violins. All right, so that's pretty pathetic. And just a couple of things I want to point out. That you notice here, right? I'm playing 3-note textures and I'm attacking each one, except right here I held this note over. And when you've got repeated notes, so let's say that this was, whoops, let's say that, hold on. Let's say this note was this long, and so I've got a repeated note here, right? Even though you're going from, if you look at the voices, you're going from this note up to this note, that's the melodic figure. So the one violinist is playing this, and then he's playing this note, and then this violinist is playing this, and then he's playing this note, or she, and then this violinist is playing this, and then she's playing this note. What works best with sampled instruments when you don't have legato, all right, is to combine those and make that one note so that you get less attack. So I'm going to just lasso so that they're both highlighted. And I think I've gone over this before, but Option, Shift, and the number 3. And that makes that all one note. And that makes a smoother. And then what I would probably do here is the same thing. Just select all those notes, Option, Shift, 3. Now, let me just take a look at something here. Okay, so there are some programmed libraries where no matter what, and it has to do with sustained notes, no matter what velocity you play at, it's the same volume, right? So what they typically have done is they've assigned velocity layers to a continuous controller like a mod wheel. Now, on this particular library, which is the BBC Symphonic one, the free one, they only have one dynamic level. On the one that you pay with, they might have 6 or 7 dynamic levels from pianissimo to fortissimo. And as you move the mod wheel, it cycles through those different velocity layers and smoothly not only gets louder, but gets brighter and maybe more intense vibrato. But with this one here, the way they've programmed it is that you can, what you can do is go to expression or MIDI volume, but I like to teach expression, which is right here. And this is what's called a control change, or as people say today, continuous controller. And you can do your dynamics this way. Let me get this guy out of the way. And I'm just got the pencil tool, and let's right now use line. And so if I want to get soft and crescendo, right, to something like that, and then start to decrescendo a little bit, and then maybe on our last bit chord, get really soft. I can draw something in like that, and now you'll hear and it'll get softer. Okay, so that's one thing. Now, because you don't have legato with this library, what you want to do is see, yeah, this doesn't have it, right? So let me change this to expand 2. And let me just add a string library here. Let's do strings. Where are they? So we'll do big soft strings, right? So let me play this again. Now, what you're hearing here, and let me get rid of myself, you don't need to see me anymore, is the attack of every note, right? Now, if you want to mask that a little bit, right, you have a control here that will help you with that. And that control is called the release control. There's something called an envelope to a sound. And 3 of the parameters of envelope have to do with level, and 1 parameter has to do with time. So attack, decay, sustain, and release. ADSR. And Bob Moog invented that. And as I've mentioned before, he went to Queens College. So Herb Deutsch, who taught at Hofstra and was friends with Dr. Moog, when they were working together on some of the first modular instruments, and they wanted a way to control the volume of sound over time. They came up with this paradigm of ADSR, and it's still in use today, although there are many variations of it. They've got more complicated envelopes, and envelopes are used to control all sorts of functionality in a modern synthesizer. You can control the filter, you can control the LFO, all sorts of stuff. The envelopes are really helpful. So we're going to just today learn attack and release, and those are volume, right? The attack is, well, no, actually, I'm sorry. I made a mistake. There were 3 that have to do with time and level, and 1 that just has to do with time, right? So the attack is the amount of time it takes for a sound to go from no volume to full volume. The decay is the amount of time it takes to go from full volume to the sustained volume. And sustain is just, how long the note sustains. And then when you let go of the key, the release time is the amount of time it takes to get from the sustained volume to no volume. So I'm going to go over that again in future classes. But we're just going to work today with the attack and the release. So right now, I'm going to show you the attack, the release, and how you can use it to help you smooth this out. So if let's say I'm going to play a note, and when I let go of the note, if I take the release, right, you can hear how it cuts right off unnaturally. There's a little bit of decay after I let go of it. Let's make it a little bit more. You want to get it enough so that it's going to mask the next attack, right? But not so much that it makes the sound muddy. So let's listen to this now. Much smoother. So let's go, whoops, wrong one. Let's go back to where it was, which was perpendicular, straight up and down. Right, you can hear da, 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 very definite attacks. So we can mask that by turning the release up a little bit so the note is still hanging over as the next one is striking. Now, that's too much because you can hear the volume of the previous chord a little bit too long, right? So that gets muddy. So you just have to use your ears and adjust it. Much better. Now, if I want to make the attack, let me play a note. Let me take the attack. So it doesn't really change it too much. Let me make... So it's still trying to get up to full volume. See how long that's taking? Let me back that off a little bit. And let me add some release now. So I've changed the attack to make that much more expressive. And the release too, so that even though it's not legato, you're getting a much more flowing sound. So that's some more work that you can do. Right, much smoother sound. Okay, great. Now, let's work on note duration again, okay? Okay, so that's pretty poorly played. That's the prelude in D from the W well-tempered clavier. So let's select all these, right? And let's do Command 0, Option 0. And let's go to change duration. So I want this to be staccato, right? So I'm going to make it, these are 16th notes. 16th note is 240 ticks. So I'm going to make it less than that. So let's try, what if it was 120 ticks? Okay. So now what I want to do is these are way too loud. So I'm going to bring the velocity on those down. And then this is too loud, so I'm just going to smooth out my phrasing. And also, I'm a little ahead of the beat. So rather than quantizing everything, I'm just going to select everything like this. And I'm going to be in slip mode, and I'm just going to drag it a little bit later. And I'm going to just manually adjust a few notes. I don't want it to be quantized, you know? So it's phrased oddly, right? So what I want to do is right, I want those, the low note and the high note, to be louder. So I'm making it so that, you know, these notes that are on the beat are the loudest notes. And then there's going to be one more thing I do. Okay, so now I'm going to select this note. I'm holding the shift key down and selecting this note, and then this note, this note. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make those longer. So let's say I make those, one beat. So if I just click here and type in 1 and then hit apply. That's a little too long. So let's change that to a dotted eighth note. So that'd be 720. Right? And let's select all these other notes like this. Okay, and let's bring the velocity on those way down, and then I've got a couple of other notes that I didn't get my duration. All right, so now let's listen to this. Okay, so this is too soft, right? So I'm just adjusting this. And, you know, it takes a little experimentation, a little listening. Let me bring these up a little bit. And these are too loud. But those might be too loud. Okay, so you see that with some careful planning, that's better. It's not great. These may be too loud. So let's... So let's show you another event operation, change velocity. Okay, so I am going to subtract. I'm going to change the velocity of note on. I'm going to subtract 10 from every one of those, and then boom. And that's much better. So you see how I'm sort of playing around here and just trying to make things more musical. You know, I would tweak that a little bit more, right? Okay, let's move forward. So now we've got this little bit here. Let's take a listen to this. So that's like a little flourish that you might hear at the end of a phrase with flute, right? So let's take a look at the velocity of this. And let's fit that in. There we go. I'm not going to bother with the note length. It's fine. Now, I can take the line and I can draw a crescendo like this, right? Is that really what somebody does? I don't think so. For me, it's like it starts off and gets louder, and as you get closer to the last note, it's sort of like almost like an arch, an upside down arch shape, right? So how can we get that kind of a thing? Well, we could use the freehand, and we could draw something in like this. Something like that. That's okay. But what if we did this? What if we made everything the same velocity, soft, and option 0, and let's go to change velocity. There's a function here that says change smoothly by percentage, right? So if I click on this, it has from to. So 100% is the same velocity, right? So what if I want to start off a little bit softer? So let's say I make it 75%, and then we change it up to 150%, right? Let's try that. And you see that we've got just a little bit of an arc, like a plane, an inclined plane. So let's make this 75 to 200 and hit enter. And that's okay, but let's undo all that stuff. Now we're straight again. Right here, you've got something called a curve, right? So if you click on this and drag this to the right, you see that you're getting a representation of what it's going to look like. So let's say I go up to 27. That looks kind of like a cool curve, right? If I apply that, oh yeah, we're getting there, right? But we need to have it be a little bit more. So let's go to about 275, and let's do the same thing. And you see, as it's getting closer to the target note, the velocity is increasing faster. And if you want it, you can just now bring everything up like this, and you can get more of a rush. All right, so that's a pretty cool thing. So that's change smoothly by percentage. Okay. Now, here's that same string passage. Wait, hold on a second. Okay. So let's select these notes, right? So you could see that it's sloppily played, which is for strings, that's fine. You don't want it to be precise. It's, you know, it can be a little imprecise. It sounds better. It sounds more human. But let's say I wanted to quantize all these, right? So if I did option 0, I brought off my quantizing. These are all half notes. Is the smallest, is the largest, the smallest note. So we don't want triplet and we don't want strength. We want to quantize it to a half note. And if I select quantize, just quantize the note on, right? All the notes start now on the beat, but you could see like in this area here, there's a gap, right? So if I select all and I undo that, and then I get my quantize right here. And if I do note off, and I do quantize grid, you know, now everything is exactly perfect, which is not what we want, but I just wanted to show you that you can quantize the duration of a note as well as the beginning of a note. Now, right here and right here, I've done that trick where I've held the note through right here, even though it's changing voices. It's going from the lowest voice, right, and the middle voice. Well, the middle voice is still playing through here instead of it being a separate attack on the lowest voice. So let's just separate that out. So I went to quantize and I placed my cursor, my playback head right on beat 3, and if I do Command E, right, that separates that out, and I need to do that again right here. Okay, so I'm doing a sketch score, and I've played all this in on one hand. What if I now want to orchestrate this for violin 1, violin 2, and violin 3? All right, there's a couple of ways of doing that. I want to show you a way using another function called select split notes. Okay, so there's two ways of doing that. Now let me show you another way to get to the event operations window. So if I right click in this edit page here, right click, event operations. So you can also access this there, and you're going to go to something called select split notes. Let me do it. Let's see. If I do option 0, and I can make this bigger now. Well, let's do it this way. No, I have to do it. Sorry, because of the zooming thing. Right, I can go here, select split notes, and select that. Now, I can select all, right? And I can select the top one note of each chord, okay? And hit apply, and you notice that the top note is now selected. I can copy that, and then I can so I'm at measure 42. I can go here, and I can merge paste that in, right? Cool. Let me go back to this. Now, I can then do something interesting, which is I can select the top note of all this. And then I can delete that. And then I can select the top note again and copy that, right? And paste that in. That's one thing I can do. Or I can undo all that and I can select the top two notes of each chord, right? So let's all that and the top two notes of each chord. And I can copy that. And then in violin right here, I can merge paste that in. And then now I can select the top one note of each chord and delete that. And I can go back to our original track. And I can select the bottom one note of every chord. Oh, what was that? That was weird. The bottom one note. There we go. Copy. And then I can go to viola right here. And then I can use this guy here, right here, and then merge paste that in. And I can mute the top track. And now I've got, oh wait, it should be right here. Okay. So violin 1, violin 2, viola. Now let me show you another trick that's really cool. So remember, this is the same. Oh, these are off. Let me just put these back. Whoops, they should be right here, just to keep things logical. Now, this is the same passage as, oh, and then here at the end, whoops, let's go violin 1, and let's go here and let's make these all one note. So I select all those and Option Shift 3, that cleans that up. Now, remember we had the same passage right here, and we did some work with expression. Now, notice when I open this lane selector that the controllers down here is amber. That means that one of those is being used. So that's expression, right? So I can put my selector tool in here and I'm going to go one measure before, right? And I'm going to click and drag, and I'm just going to copy the expression. Right? I'm not copying the notes. I'm just copying the expression. So I'm clicking and dragging and then copying, Command C, the expression. And then let me go to this violins 1 over here. And where is that? That's here. So I'm going to go one measure before and I'm going to paste that in. See that? And then I'll do the same thing with violin 2. And with the viola. And now I might want violin 1 to be a little bit louder, so I can, to voice it, I can select all this and use my trimmer tool and just bring this down. And I can do the same thing with violin 2, right? Just drag that down. And then now we've got some shaping. That's the viola. So if I play these all, I've got this one muted, so we're just hearing the bottom 3, but you can hear that the melody note is louder. Now, there's no way here to change the release on this, right? They should give you that on Discover, but they don't. So what do you expect for nothing? But anyway, all right. Great. Now, any questions on any of this? I mean, I'm just rolling right through this, right? let's see. So we're at 6 o'clock. So I have, okay, I'll do this another time with this last example. I want to get to what I want to, part of what's going to be for the assignment next week. All right. So we're switching gears right now. So I've got something in Expand 2 right here. And let me play you this. Okay, so that is a sound that I created using the raw materials from Expand 2. And so the first thing is I'm able to say I recalled that because right here, right, I've got a folder called Pete Presets, and I've got Smooth Pad right in there. So let's talk about this right now. Let me play a few of these. Right here, I've got something called percussive strings. Demented. And then right here, I've got something I call orchestrated winds. So that, if I record enable that, let me actually, let's see. You can hear when I play this note, it's a bassoon. Bassoon and clarinet. Clarinet and oboe. Clarinet and flute. Flute, right? So I've got, well, you can hear the clarinet coming in there. You hear the oboe coming in there. Flute. Just the flute, right? So I've set this up and I've orchestrated it basically so that if I played something here, you're getting two bassoons. If I'm playing this here, you're getting two notes, two bassoons, one on each note. Here it's a clarinet and a bassoon on each note. Here it's an oboe and a clarinet, and then here it's an oboe and a flute. Right? So I created that patch. So let me go through what I did for each one, and part of your assignment for next week, your assignment for 2 weeks is going to be to create an original piece of music with a certain number of tracks, and you're going to have a certain number of those tracks be original instruments that you program. All right. So for next week, you're going to have to program. I'll write tomorrow morning, send out an email when I get this a little bit more straightened out in my head. But let's take a look at the smooth pad. All right. So before we do that, let's take a look at Expand 2. Maybe what I should do is just put in one that's the preset. Now, unfortunately, it always comes with this as the preset sound. I'm so sick of hearing that. But if you look at this, it's broken up into sections, right? You've got this top part called the smart knobs. And what is in the smart knobs changes depending upon the preset you select. So what the programmers did was they created sounds and they programmed the smart knobs to give you what they felt are the most important parameters for that sound. So it might be different depending upon the type of sound you call up. So that's the first thing to remember. And if you notice that this one has attack, decay, release, and cutoff. So that's our envelope depth, and fine tune. Now, if you notice, everything is color coordinated. This is easy. So this first layer here that you're seeing is the easy controls. Just remember that for a second. Right here, you've got 4 slots that you can load up with 4 different sounds. And it's slot A, B, C, and D. This is the on-off button. So if I turn that off and I play the keyboard, you're not hearing any sound. Now you're hearing sound. The way that you, and this right here is the MIDI channel. So you technically could have, and I don't really teach this, I'll go over it a little bit maybe in a week or so, but you could have a different MIDI channel for each sound and play on 4 MIDI tracks triggering this. Yeah, I should probably teach that. I'll do that in a future class. Hopefully I'll remember that. But we'll leave all these on MIDI 1. So the way that you select sounds is you click here and it brings up the same menu as the librarian menu up here. But there are different, much different sounds in here. So in other words, if I bring up soft pads, it's got a lot of things that soft pad up here doesn't have, right? So so let's say I select the first soft pad, which is Angels, and I select that. Okay, so that's some sort of choir sound. Great. Okay, so that's the basic idea. And I'll go over this as I'm going through the presets that I made. So let's take a look at the smooth pad, right? So I've got 3 different sounds here. So if I turn off B and C, we're only going to hear the guitar pad. Oh, wait, excuse me. Let me enable that track. If I turn that off, notice I turned it off. It's still going until it completely fades out. Then if I enable track slot B, we've got reverse glass. Which is kind of a cool sound. And then breathy pad. Let me get all this. That's very soft. Let me bring that up. Okay, so now those are the 3 sounds I picked. Let me turn off everything and turn on guitar pad. Oh, why does that have MIDI 4? No, that should be MIDI 1. So that's my guitar pad. And let's go left to right. So this is the level, right? This is the pan. And there are two effects sends. I don't have those turned on. I will show you those when we do the orchestrated, when we do the percussive strings, I'll show you these. But for right now, I've got these set up so that they're all three of these sounds are panned in the middle, and I've balanced the levels so that maybe this could be a little louder. There we go. And maybe this could also be a little louder. So that's a really nice sound, but there's more that you can do to these sounds. Let me turn off B and C. And if we notice up here on to the left of the smart knobs, this says easy, but it also has A, B, C, and D, which means that you have a global control for all of 4 slots, and you have individual control of each slot. And notice how the global control has an envelope, attack, decay, release, an envelope, depth, and fine tune. I haven't touched these. These are all in the preset area. But when I go to the easy one, this is the guitar pad. See, they've got some different controls, right? So you see the filter envelope. If I play around with that, it changes. That wow, that nasally sound comes in much louder. Right? This is the cutoff. So the cutoff frequency is the typical filter for subtractive synthesis. Right? There are for analog synthesis, there are 3 filter types: low pass, band pass, and high pass. You most typically, like on my Moog synth back there, and on my ARP 2600 and a couple of my other synths around here, they've all got low pass filters. My 2-Voice Pro has a low pass or band pass or high pass. You could switch it. But basically what it is it just attenuates the high frequencies and allows the low frequencies to pass through. Right? A low-pass filter allows the low frequencies to pass through and turns the volumes down of the high frequencies. And I'll show you that in more detail in a future class. But for right now, let me just demonstrate here what it does. So let me zoom in. So if I turn it to the left, it's going to get darker. Turn to the right, it's going to get brighter. And then you can have the attack be, or you can have the attack be slow. And you can have no release. Right? Now, let me just do something here. Make the attack and the release very... So you're hearing some delay. I don't have the effects turned on. They have a preset effect here. So you could turn that up. Or you could turn that down. And it's not there at all. Right? So this is something that they just... It's a ping pong delay. It goes from left to right. Right, so you can play with that. And let's get this back to something more reasonable. Slower attack, because this is a pad. Great. So B. Let's mute. Let's turn A off, turn B on. Oh, MIDI. How did that MIDI channel get changed? So if you're playing and nothing is happening, make sure that the MIDI channel hasn't been changed. Okay, so this has an LFO rate. That's a low frequency oscillator that typically works. with the mod wheel. We're not going to go over that right now. This has a delay mix. So let's make the attack sharp. Right, so you can see the echo is pretty prominent, and then this is more of the dry signal, right, with no delay. Now, this is really interesting. If I play the notes soft, and if I play the notes hard, right, it's interesting how the effect changes. So the higher you get here, so I'm going to play the note, you're not going to hear the note I'm playing. You're only going to hear the delay. So I'm playing, you'll hear the keyboards being depressed, and then the sound comes in. And this is our cutoff frequency. See, it's getting darker, brighter. Now, what resonance does is it emphasizes the volumes around the cutoff frequency. So when I'm moving this cutoff frequency from left to right, I'm changing where the filter starts. So let's do this a different way. So if I go here and we go to EQ and we add in EQ1, right? And I select low pass. When I change the cutoff frequency, this graph, everything on the left it's like the piano. Low notes, low frequencies, and on the right is high frequencies. So this is affecting the sound, right? And from bottom to top is volume. So when it's down here, there's no volume up here of these frequencies. And as I go here, you're hearing more of the higher frequencies until I get all the way here and where very little attenuation at all. So on here, when I move this to the left, that's making the cutoff frequency lower. What the resonance does is it emphasizes the volume of the frequency that the cutoff filter is set at, right? And that's how you can get these wow sounds. So, wow, wow, right? So I really jacked up the resonance. So that's pretty cool. And then let's get that attack slower. And let's bring that cutoff down. And you see how you can create these really beautiful sounds. Now, let's turn off the delay and let's bring the resonance down. Now, you're hearing that there's motion in the sound. Action rate. So that's a preset LFO that they've got in there. And now if you add the guitar pad, you balance those out. Now, if we turn those off and we go to breathy pad, just, I've got this resonance and a very slow attack. And if I jack up the resonance, you can hear more of a wow. Pretty cool. Try to get an orchestra to do that. So you see how it's changing where that frequency is, and it's giving that wow, wow. So you can actually automate this so that this moves in time with your music. We'll be getting into that too, right? But let's just, this is a lot of information today. A lot of information. Okay, so that's our breathy pad, our smooth pad, and I've saved preset there. Let's go back to the preset. Now, you notice that I've got a folder here that says Pete presets, right? If I go to my applications folder and I go to Air Music Technology and expand to, oh, wait. Huh? You know, I haven't done this since I loaded this into my newer computer. Huh. All right, I'm going to have to look that up. I can't believe it. It's they moved it. There's supposed to be folders in that folder that has all your presets. So for next week, you're just going to make presets, and then I'll show you how to make a folder to put them in. Let's see. Yeah, where is this? Pro Tools. Oh, I see. Okay, great. So here, this is another way to get there. All right. So that's in your, right, that's in your, like, I don't want to get into how to navigate there. That's in your library, but let's do this. So if I go right here, preset, right, you can save settings as, and then that lets you navigate to your expand to preset folder, and that's plugin settings, Pro Tools. Oh, that's in the documents folder. I see. Okay, great. That's no problem. Okay, I found where that is. Plugin settings. Great. Right. So when you do that, it will open up to this where all the plugin folders are. So you would make a new folder and you would, whatever your name is. So if I was Adrian, I'd make an Adrian presets folder, and then I would title this smooth pad, 3 numbers. This is very important. 2 zeros and a 1, because if you make 20, you want to have it in order, right? So you'll have 3 zeros and then a number, or if you get up to 10, it would be 0, 10, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 1. So you would call this smooth pad, and you know, if you want to put your initials on that, fine. Oh, why is that messing me up? Let me cancel that. Let's do that again. Okay, new folder. And there we go. I just saved it there. And now if I look here, I should have an Adrian preset folder in that. Yep, right here. And then I can just navigate and load that in. All right, so let's take a look at these percussive strings. Now, I added in, right, spiccato strings, marimba, and vibraphone. And just one thing I did here that's different is, if you notice, the marimba is in the left and the vibraphone is in the right. So if I turn off these guys and I enable this track, so only the marimba is on, so you should be hearing this in your left headphone. And if I turn the vibraphone on, that should be in your right. Now, one thing I just noticed is that if I click on the letter here, it opens up the smart knob for that particular preset. And then my strings I left in the center. Now, let's talk about effects inside of Expand 2. So down here, you've got 2 slots. And if you click here, it brings up a menu. Let's bring this up higher so that I can get more of that in the window. Click right in this area here. It brings up, and you can just scroll down, all these different kinds of effects. All sorts of effects. So I've got this on pre-delay hall. Oh no, I just have it on hall. This gives you the size of the hall and the shape of the hall. And notice that it's right here. Interesting. So you have to turn it on with this button here. And what you do is you send some of this audio. This is FX1. It's labeled right here, FX1 here. So, right, so I've sent a lot of that hall there, but that's way too much. Now, if I want to change the size, I can click and drag this, and it shows you right here, size is 8/7 second. Or I can make it 21 seconds. And you can see the shape, it's darker. It's brighter. So you could play around with that. And let's say I wanted to add a second kind of, let's say I added like a ping pong delay. Right? I could turn this up so there's more of the send. Left and right. And then when you right click here, you see that, or when you click on that, it tells you that it's set to a quarter note. So whatever your tempo is, this will lock to your tempo. So a quarter note, half note triplet, dotted eighth note, quarter note triplet, eighth note, 16th note, a dotted 16th note. So you can lock this to your tempo, which is kind of cool. Now, feedback is the number. Throw some D and Beige. That's funny, Adrian. Oh, that was a while ago. Sorry, I didn't see your comment. Sorry, Adrian. So the feedback is the number of echoes. So if I turn the feedback off, you just hear 2, one in the left ear and one in the right ear and one in the left. That's what they mean by ping pong, is that you get a delay in the one ear and then a delay in the other ear. If I turn the feedback up, you'll hear more. Right? So if I turn it way up, and you'll see that they're also louder because it's taking longer for them to decay. And then you can route some of this into this hall. So if I turn this up, you'll hear that the ping pong delay is actually going through the hall. So let me turn the hall off here. Do you hear that? So you can come up with some really, truly. What if I turn the effect all the way up? Interesting. So you could see, like, you know, this is just Expand 2. It's like this old technology, right, that with some creativity and understanding how the controls work, you can come up with like all sorts of really interesting textures and timbres that are professional sounding. And you could save them. And every DAW has their own built-in soft synths, whether they have sample-based or they do virtual synthesis. They all have them. And you have to explore how to change the parameters and create original sounds, because if all you do is work with presets, then everybody has access to those presets. And this is one of the issues I have with Logic, is that if you call up a sound and you're a beginner, it'll come with like a whole set of effects plugged in for you. So you don't have to learn how to do anything. It does it all for you. And that really is a turnoff to me. But, they want to make stuff applicable to the masses. All right. So orchestrated winds. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, so what's different about this, first of all, you'll notice that, let me turn off all these three. And if I look at my flute, let me record enable that, sorry. My flute is panned to the left. So you can hear that that's in your left ear. If I turn it all the way to the left, you can really hear that. You can hear that my oboe is in the left, but it's a little bit more center. Clarinet is a little bit to the right. Oh, and the bassoon should be a little bit more to the left. And the bassoon is to the left. Okay. So how do I get it? Right, I'm playing up here and there's no notes. What I did was right here. So let's start with the bassoon. We'll go from the bottom up. High and low key, right? I clicked here and you can do one of two things. You can click right and it'll just move up and down, or you can drag, click and drag, or you can right click on this and it says learn key, right? So learn key. So if I press the key, the lowest key that I want that to be at, that changed to C1. So let me zoom in again on that and let me change this. So if I right click, learn key, and I hit my C, and then I decided I wanted that to go all the way up to C3, which is middle C. So learn key, boom. My clarinet starts at B1, which is the lowest note of the clarinet. So if I wanted to learn key, let's say, notice how I clicked that to A, it starts on A, but I wanted A. And then it went all the way up to A3. So it actually overlapped with the flute in one spot. And then the oboe, the lowest note on an oboe is C3. And then that goes up to G4. So, and then G3 for the flute, even though the lowest note on a flute is also around middle C, and then up to G8. So I basically set up these zones where the sound is playing only in those zones. And then I did some panning with that. And then I added a dense hall, right? And then some effects. So that's how I did that. And then that gives me my... Oh, I have to turn it on. The other one's on. Excuse me. So I can also... Now, I have this little controller here. This is beyond the scope of the class, but I have these, I can do the expression here. Okay, so Noam, let me, yeah, that's a good question, all right? Now, I've noticed something really weird this semester when I was doing this that I've never noticed before. So let's go to soprano sax, right? So soprano sax is set to mono, so that when I play this, I'm holding this down, it's only playing one note. Now, if I change this to poly, it's still going to be... Yeah, so that's not working the way I want it to. It's really upsetting me that these things have, there's something weird going on. So let's go back to winds. Let's go to French horn. Well, what that mono does is it lets you make things more legato because it doesn't give you two attacks, right? That's the whole bit behind it. So the sound doesn't linger over into the next note. So that's what you use that. I actually went over that in Recording Studio Fundamentals. This is supposed to change so that I'm able to play chords now. I'm not sure why it's doing that. Let me try it from here. Okay, great. So when I set it up from here, let me add a little release. And let me slow the attack down. Yeah, not a good example with the French horns, but let's do this with the. Yes, it's not. I'm not sure why this has changed in this later version of this, but this is supposed to only be one note. But when you have something that's mono as opposed to poly, that lets you play more legato stuff, like I was just showing you with the soprano sax. So now that's playing poly. That is really bizarre. That's really strange. So I add a little release. Right, so that if you play this note and then this note, you get a smoother transition than if you just had it as a polyphonic, because then some of those notes would linger over, like with the strings when I was showing you that. So that's the reason why you would use mono, and it's also used in synth bass lines. No, I'd have to get up a synth sound. Let's see, synth bass. Right, so as opposed to. So if it was polyphonic, you'd hear that attack every time, but. Right, so that's one reason. Man, what is up with that? I don't like that vibrato on that. There we go. So if I'm playing those notes legato, right, I'm not getting an additional attack. So that's sort of what the mono thing does. It just gives you, it simulates legato with this type of an instrument. So, all right. So that's going to bring us to an end for today. It's like an insane amount of information. I will get the review video up probably tomorrow, and I'll start working on feedback videos tomorrow, hopefully be done by Saturday. There are 17 people in this class, so it takes me a while to get through everything. Any questions on any of this? Right. Getting the stuff down will take your sequences to a new level of expression, right? And I haven't even started talking about automating parameters yet, except for volume. And I'm going to work on automating pan next time and showing you some cool stuff with the different shapes. So basically, in 2 weeks, there's going to be a composition due. It could be an original piece. I've got some sheet music I'll you'll have options to choose those. But basically for next week, you're going to have to program a certain number of original sounds using Expand 2, just using the techniques we went over in the second half of class today. All right. So just, do that. You'll hand that in. I'll give you feedback on it, and then you'll finish the piece. So next week is halfway through the semester. So we're going to, probably do 2 more classes on MIDI, and then we're going to start working on audio. We're going to do a whole class on rhythm section programming, which will be probably the last MIDI class. But there will be audio will be part of that class because you're going to be transcribing some famous drum grooves as part of the class. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you for the questions. Will you email us what we need to do for next week? Yes, I'm going to put together a PDF and email it out to everybody in the morning. I just wanted to see how far I got today. I didn't want to make an assignment and then I didn't get through everything and then the assignment's useless. So I wanted to see how far I got through the class today. Yep. Okay. No questions? Have a great weekend, everybody. I think Saturday we're supposed to get a pretty wicked snowstorm here. Hopefully you guys down closer to the city won't get anything as bad. And I will.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Yep, I will catch you guys next week. Yes.